Today, we'd be showing you all the death scenes that occurred in Invincible Season 2 from Episode 1 to 4. Spoilers ahead. Relax and enjoy. Season 2 of Invincible begins with a blazing fight between Mark, Invincible, and Immortal. Omni-Man joins in and quickly makes mincemeat of Immortal. Mark crushes his head to mist in his hands. Mark has joined his father in turning Earth into part of the Viltrum Empire. The city is an apocalyptic hellscape. Deep underground, Robot has helped build a sanctuary for the decimated regular human population. However, he's back in his deformed body. We're introduced to Angstrom 646. Mark and Omni-Man bust in and take over. Angstrom escapes through a green portal. Mark paralyzes a ragged-looking Adam Eve. Cue a montage of Mark helping with various disasters set to Radiohead's Karma Police. It seems the world is not what it was at first, but world is moving on from the aftermath of Mark's fight with his father in Chicago. In Season 2, Episode 1, there isn't much deaths in the episode, but rather an aftermath of Omni-Man causities in Season 1. In Episode 2, we get to see Cecil, who says he's needed to help promote a diplomatic crisis which they must attend to. The Atlanteans are still angry about Omni-Man murdering Aquarius, who was also their king. Their laws also dictate that since Omni-Man disappeared, his punishment falls to his next of kin, or he can marry Aquarius' widow. Cecil assures Invincible that the marriage would be purely symbolic and leaves as a pair of Atlanteans arrive in a ship to take him to their kingdom. Back underwater, Invincible is fitted with a breathing device and meets the Atlantean queen, who assures him that they abolished the "who marry the person who murdered your spouse" policy years ago. Instead, he's forced to battle a giant sea monster. That would be challenging enough on its own. The creature's roar is also able to disorient and paralyze Invincible. Cecil sends some backup in the form of torpedoes that destroy the monster's restraints, allowing it to rampage among the Atlanteans who'd gathered to watch the fight. Despite having a clear escape path, Mark once again proves why he's not his father and returns to defeat the creature. First, by rupturing its larynx, followed by a good old-fashioned ass-kicking. Since Invincible saved the queen, the Atlanteans decide to call it even. Cecil, on the other hand, is a bit miffed that he betrayed a direct order. However, due to the failure of the Lizard League and by the boss in the battle with the Guardians of the Globe, Supreme Lizard is assassinated by an escaped King Lizard, who retakes control of the Lizard League. In a mid-credits scene, Angstrom Levy interrogates a captured Invincible in another dimension about how he and his father were defeated, which basically came down to wearing him out. In Episode 3, we get to see Alan the Alien, who gets a full origin story montage. Turns out, Alan is a champion of the Onopian race who was genetically bred to be able to kill Viltrumites. Alan, of course, failed at that task and was eventually reassigned to being a surveyor of planets on behalf of the Galactic Coalition. Alan's mistake with Earth and Mark Grayson led to the GC getting its best chance yet to combat the Viltrumite threat. The next day, a trio of seasoned Viltrumite warriors arrives at Coalition HQ on Telescria, demanding to know more about intel about Nolan's desertion of Earth and his half-human son. Alan refuses to submit and is beaten to near death by the Viltrumites. In the end, Alan is killed in his regenerative chamber by none other than Thetis, as the Alan portion of the episode ends. Episode 4, which is also re-end of Season 2 Part 1, begins with Mark back in the present day, confronts Emperor Nolan. And after some initial tension, father and son embrace in a hug. The moment doesn't last very long as Mark is still deeply angry with his father, including over the latest lie that brought him to Thraxa. After a brief tantrum, Mark tries to fly away, but he's too far from Earth to make it. Nolan implores Mark to hear him out about the Thraxan plight. However, somehow Nolan was able to convince Mark to stay and help out. Although the moment that both had doesn't last long because the 3 Viltrumite soldiers that tracked down and killed Alan the Alien arrive on Thraxa. Also, while all this was happening, Adam Eve, who was sleeping at a Guardians of the Globe safe house in the city when recurring C-list villain Kill Cannon shows up to steal one of Robot's old power sources. Luckily, a fight is exactly what Eve is looking for. Eve battles Kill Cannon on a bridge, but things go awry when the arrogant young heroine lets a car with 2 elderly bystanders fall off the bridge. Eve dives in and saves them, but they still end up severely injured. Eve can't handle another case of her hero work going wrong and is left in emotional crisis. Back to Thraxa, Viltrumite soldier Lucan shows up and Mark battles to protect his dad's new family. Lucan proves to be even more ruthless than Nolan, and Mark is quickly overwhelmed until his dad saves him. Nolan and Lucan have a savage tussle that ends with Nolan disemboweling him with a karate chop and running him through with a stalagmite for good measure. Omni-Man and Invincible regroup and prepare to fight the other 2 soldiers. Nolan is feeling more emotion about the death and destruction the Viltrumites are causing, and he's both furious at and bewildered by it. He lashes out at Mark, demanding to know why empathy is desirable when it feels so bad. The philosophy debate is interrupted when the final two Viltrumite soldiers show up for round 2 of battle. The fight is brutal. At one point, Nolan takes Mark aside and chastises him for not fighting like a true Viltrumite, demanding he unleashes full fury and killer instinct. Mark fights the female soldier with her razor hair braid and finally starts to lay some true smackdown on her. In the end, though, he's still too soft. Nolan slaughters his opponent, but Mark hesitates with a kill blow and ends up getting stabbed. Nolan brutally finishes the female soldier and saves Mark, but Lucan shows up carrying his own guts and takes Nolan out with an earth-shattering drop kick. With every Viltrumite down, Luca informs the Empire that the mission is a success. Mark awakes injured and immobile on Thraxa just in time to see his dad being carted away by the Viltrumites. Nolan begs Mark to remember the good he did for Earth and to read the books he wrote. It's clear the books hold some important knowledge for Mark to find. The end credits scene sees the two-faced Mauler betrayed and poisoned by the clone. Apparently, physical proof that there's an original is a deal-breaker, and the clone stands over his dead twin, exclaiming that sometimes things are the way they are for a reason. Hopefully, that means a return to the classic Mauler twins formula. To close out the end credits, we finally get a track from fan-fave music group Run the Jewels titled The Ground Below. If you love content like this and more full film recap, kindly subscribe and get recent uploads.